Hey everyone, welcome to Your Desk University. It's so great to be here with you. It's an honor. It's been fun. We've been doing these now for almost exactly a year. We started back in March or April last year as COVID was hitting, and we realized conferences were canceled, and we wanted to connect with the computational design community around. We're so glad to have you. I'm watching the chat. So is our speaker today. What are we talking about today? Well, computational design and visual scripting, they really have changed things. And you know that as much as I do. But about 10 years ago, with Grasshopper and Dynamo becoming more obvious, it really changed the way people worked, and it allowed for more people to get engaged. Now, that was 10 years ago. Now it's considered a standard in a lot of practices, and ML and AI are being talked about. What do you think? I really want to hear either in the comments below or in the chat. What do you think? Are these things, how are they going to change the world, and how are they going to change our design? Our speaker today will talk about the state of the industry and how he sees it and what the roles are for designers in creating this future. So I know a lot of you are these types of people because Your Desk is designed and intended to be created to support that the people who are doing a lot of innovation, like yourself, computational designers, architects, engineers who are learning to code. We really want to support that community and do everything we can. If you haven't seen our website, definitely check it out. Also, if you can see here on my left, all these wonderful sessions upcoming. We have Helping Architects Architect, kind of also talking about things and ways that people are coding, and VR and Dynamo. We have a special session on March 10th, celebrating March 8th. Coming back to the original slide, if you look below me, these are all the speakers who are going to be here. Brian Ringley's going to be talking about robotics. Karis is going to be talking about VR. I'm just so grateful to the organizers and the speakers who really make this happen. I just create the space and sometimes present myself. So with that, I'll go straight to our speaker. I do want to introduce to you Håvard Vasshaug. Hopefully I said that close to right. He taught me Dynamo back in, I'm going to get the year wrong, but either 2013 or 2014 in Chicago at the Build conference. He flew in because someone had, I think, canceled their class. We'll have to maybe get that whole story. And then Lisa Marie, who's next to him, and her video is frozen, but I will check that and see if I can get that fixed. There we go. So with that, let's see what else. Håvard, you run a group called Reope, which is part of the Bad Monkeys network. I will give a little teaser now, and you can confirm or deny this, but the Bad Monkeys kind of started out from kind of people who were getting into coding and wanted to have someone to ask harder questions of. Is that fair? Maybe you can give us more details. But we're looking forward to hearing what you have for us today about the past, the present, and the future of computational design. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you nailed that one.
I hope so. It's YouTube. I got to do it something right. So, but yeah. So tell us a little bit about Reope and what you guys are doing there.
Reope is now the name of our company in Norway. It was actually Bad Monkeys 6 months ago, and for actually since we started the Bad Monkeys group, that has been kind of like my tribe. Talking about it before the recording started, me and you, Lisa Marie, about the reality of starting out with programming, and maybe you're the BIM manager or you're an architect and you work in a company, and maybe you're the only one starting out with programming, and you start playing around with tools like Dynamo, Grasshopper, and Python, and you pretty quickly realize that you find yourself pretty alone in many cases. That was the case with me and a few of the other monkeys. So we were alone in our offices trying to figure out how to use these tools and how to implement them in projects. And we just found out, actually after a Build conference, that it would be better to have a group with an identity and like chatting every day about different workflows and helping each other out. And that's what we've been ever since we started. I think it was in 2014, perhaps. And then eventually some of us started making companies, and these companies remained connected, just like the original people were. And now one of those companies is our company in Norway, Reope. And then Conrad has a company in Chicago, and Adam has a company in Brisbane. Dimitar has a company in Bulgaria, and so on.
I realized I got so excited about introducing you, I forgot to introduce our second host, Lisa Marie, who is an architect who codes, which is now a term that I think, Håvard, you've created and I'm going to continually use. She runs a blog. I'm sorry, I forget the name of your blog.
Just my initials, LM2.
LM2. And she loves to educate and train people who are coding and learning how to walk into this space. And
you have a really cool domain, Lisa Marie.
Thank you.
Like super short.
Yes.
I've read your blog.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just really enjoy sharing knowledge about coding and computational design. I feel like the world's a better place if we share that knowledge with each other to make each other better. So.
Yeah.
That was one of the common denominators with my friends at the Bad Monkeys in the beginning. Also, it was the people who wanted to go on stage like Marcelo and talk and share about what they were doing, and also in the Dynamo forums and with the packages and so on. So yeah, I think that's really admirable and an important thing to do, and it requires a little bit of. You need to get a little bit out of your comfort zone, I think, to do that. It's very easy to just code, design, go home, have dinner, go to bed. And it requires more to actually get on that stage and talk to people about what you're doing. So we need more people like you, Lisa Marie.
Thank you.
And people who want to really educate people, right? Who want to help people get to the next level. And I think she does that really well, not just making it about herself. So I'm grateful for her helping us out with the Your Desk University series as well. Because we all have so much free time, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so talking about the past, talking about both our industry, the people that are in it, what would you say really started the movement towards visual scripting or computational design, Håvard?
That's really difficult for me to go way back, because when Grasshopper was introduced, I think it was maybe around 2007 or something that David Rutten released the first version of it. Was not even called Grasshopper at the time. I'd never heard of it. So we have to kind of like go pretty like a lot of years into the future from that moment before I even saw Dynamo. Dynamo was my gateway into like the whole visual programming, and then I saw Grasshopper eventually and started, pretty okay with both of them right now. So for me, it was like everything in history is like a series of events, and a lot of them are random. I was in the Revit community because I basically, if I want to go even earlier, I'm an engineer. I'm actually not an architect. I just converted to architecture by my own will without any education 10 years ago. And I was an engineer in the 2 first years at my job. I was doing rebar detailing, and I don't know if you ever did rebar detailing, guys, but that sucks. That sucks. So when someone showed me Revit, I was like so ready for something else. And then eventually, I got into rebar detailing in Revit, and then I found that boring. So I started checking out Zach Krohn's blog. He was one of the guys back then who were doing like cool shapes and like freeform modeling in Revit, which maybe today seems like a little bit of a weird thing to get excited about. But and then obviously the Zach Krohn was the person together with Matt Jasek who was presenting Dynamo, I think at the first AU in 2011. So that was how I got into it. And then of course the first my first RTC conferences and build conferences and Autodesk University conferences is where I got in touch with the people who started using Dynamo first. So that's a different journey for everyone. I mean, we were speaking before, Lisa Marie, you got into the first time you saw it was in school, university. You saw Grasshopper. I hear a lot of people, a lot of architects have the same journey. First exposure is Grasshopper at school. That wasn't not my journey, but everyone's path is different.
Yeah, it's interesting to see everyone, like, how it all worked. I mean, I started coding in high school with my family's business, and it's interesting how you said Revit was exciting for you, because it probably hit that same trigger of, oh wait, I don't have to do every piece of this manually. If I do a little bit, like, I can have some of the other stuff like given to me. And I think a lot of people who start coding, in a way, they do it out of laziness. They are like, oh, there's got to be a better way to do this, and I think that's kind of an interesting part of everyone's intro.
Well, there's different kinds of laziness. You have the the one that actually turns into something positive, and then you have the one where you're just not doing anything. So I think that we're all suffering from perhaps the first one, which is the one the angry laziness that I'm tired of doing this over and over again and getting that itch, and we talk to our clients a lot about that, because like the gold mine, when we come into an office and we start looking for stuff to automate, that is the gold mine. The anger that people feel when they're doing things over and over again.
Yeah. And when you look like 5 years back, 10 years back, what were the things that got you angry? What do you have any specific things? I mean, that
rebar
really
detailing.
Rebar detailing.
I have seen the top of the mountain of anger. I'm never going to do rebar detailing again in my life. But no, I don't know if I can remember like a specific thing. But for me, it was just, I think maybe it just became a habit. Like a curious habit. Every time you feel maybe, and it's complex. If you don't know the Dynamo exists, if you don't know it's possible to do something with Revit API, if your box is small, you don't have any, how do I say this in English? Like there's not you don't have an idea of what could be better. And if you have ideas and you have maybe a little bit of knowledge, you don't know anything, but you have an idea that, I've heard someone talk about this, maybe this could be done better. And then you're onto something,
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when we look back at this change into computational design and software, we're kind of taking on things from another industry. And in the software development world, they talk a lot about domain experts. And we're trying to become technical experts and domain experts. And how hard is that journey?
That is really hard. But I sometimes wonder if it's equally hard for the software experts to become domain experts. Maybe it's because of my point of view, because I'm an AEC and I'm an engineer / architect, and I'm like looking at software and going like, that's not so difficult. How difficult can it be? Like, it's a database. Ooh, everybody knows the database. But then, you get into this like layer upon layer upon layer of complexity that, a software engineer would know everything about. And maybe it's the same thing the other way around. It must be really frustrating if you're a software engineer and you're talking to an architect with like 30 years of experience and trying to get them to explain how they design a stair. That's probably equally difficult.
I mean, it starts bringing up so many thoughts. Have you ever sat with someone and tried to ask them to explain to you what they're doing? And
that is so difficult.
It's like they give you these really big pieces, like, oh, you design it.
Oh man, I worked with an architect. I work with an architect who would just send me an email with a screenshot of something from their Revit with no words, no comments, no nothing, just a screenshot. What do you do with that?
Always worth 1,000 words.
Exactly. But maybe a few words would be
Right.
nice.
Help.
What you want me to do.
Yeah, definitely. When you think about projects in the past, so you talked about rebar detailing, but what about projects? Like, what were some of the things that you either participated in or you saw happening in the industry that you started seeing a shift? Because I do think 10 years ago, everyone thinks like, oh yeah, we're really innovating these days. There's always been a technological shift, right? That's been since the pyramids. But what in this idea of computational design or visual programming, what do you think the shift was 10 years ago? Or I started out with asking about projects, but one of those two questions.
I think that there was a series of like the major shift was that something became available that was valuable for people, that gave people a lot of power, in the sense that you have kind of like superpowers. Like, would you hire an architect who knows Revit or an architect who knows Revit and Dynamo? I know what I would. And that shift was became big with the availability of it, and with the popularity of it, because if nobody cared about it, people cared about it. People were, myself included, a lot of other people were deeply passionate about this on various stages and on the internet and so on. Then you have a group of people who is passionate about something, then anything can happen. And then of course a lot of things were done in good choices in a sequence. The Dynamo forums is still like a fantastic resource for a lot of people. And then when these things happened at the same time, that there was demand for it, there was like a group of people who were passionate about it, and it was available, then all the stars aligned, and now there's a lot of people programming in the AEC industry. And it's interesting that what you were mentioning before, looking from other industries. When I went to engineering school, went to get my friends basically from school are like mathematical engineers and like doing lighting calculations and doing seismic analysis and stuff like that outside of the AEC industry. And way back then, like 25 years ago, I'd be surprised when I asked them what they are doing at work. What are you doing tomorrow? They would say, no, I'm working on my script. They are programming, and they're still doing that. They did it back then, and that was a natural part of work as an engineer in other fields. AEC industry is kind of like not been there, and I'm very, very happy about us like going more into that space where it becomes more a natural part of any. That's the big question I get sometimes. Is every architect going to code? And possibly not, but more than.
What do you think, Lisa Marie? Does every architect need to know how to code?
I don't think every architect needs to code, but I think that if you're interested, it can bring a lot. I think you think about projects differently, about problems differently, and it just is another tool in your repertoire. You also mentioned a little bit about like the client, kind of, if you were a client, yes, I'm in the same boat. If I'd rather hire an architect that knows Revit and Dynamo. How do you think that client relationship has changed? Like at the beginning, it kind of seems like the computational design tools were a little bit more internal, like to help firms. But how do you think they've changed that client relationship over the years and what we can offer clients?
Oh, you mean like building owners, your client as an architect?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, building owners.
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. What I know is that when we talk to building owners and contractors who typically hire architects, they are really interested in this, of course, for probably a number of reasons. They probably see that they can make more money by people being faster. That's like a strong motivation. Some of the building owners that we work with, they actually, and maybe this is a strangely Norwegian thing, but we work with the state building owners here in Norway, and they are really strongly opinionated about making this kind of knowledge publicly available, and is like really encouraging companies like ours, and also all the architectural companies who have like a strategy towards automation, who want to make automation or programming part of their delivery team. I don't know if I answered it like in a good way, but that's like, but again, that's the exposure I get to the, contractors and building owners, is that they're very supportive, for probably financial reasons, but and would like to see people with your skills and our skills, and like that people with a focus on building tools and custom solutions in projects, in more projects. But that's interesting, actually, when I do like sales presentations, we talk sometimes about like a little bit of a problem that we have, is that quite often it's the architect who feels that something should be better, who has that emotional connection to improving his or her workflow, whereas the people who maybe benefit from that architect being faster, or the contractors and the owners, they don't have an emotional connection to that. They have a logical
and a financial
connection.
one.
Yeah.
That's very
So
true.
we're trying to figure out, do I talk to the brain or the heart? And still trying to figure it out. That's a tricky one. I saw actually, Lisa Marie, that you had a post on your blog about calculating return of investment.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that one out.
Yeah. Now, what about with clients? So some of us serve architects. Some of us we serve an architectural team, like we're structural engineers. What do you think about the client relationship in that regard? Because I think, what do you think about that? Is there like a responsibility of, let's just go straight to data, but is there like a data contract or a data responsibility that the design team owes each other to deliver models, to deliver projects, not models? We don't deliver models, people. No. We deliver projects. Models and coding is all just a means to an end. A better end.
Deliver designs. Yeah, I'm not sure I completely understood your question, Timon, but there's
let me rephrase it this way. How do you think that design teams, the best design teams that you've seen, how do you see them interacting with more than how do you see them communicating, both digitally and non-digitally, to successfully deliver projects today? There's a big one.
That's a difficult one. Yeah.
Go straight for the jugular.
I don't know. Maybe I'll just create my own question.
Go for it.
And answer. I know what I do see is that maybe in like, or maybe I just work on big projects, but in like big teams where you have like a variety of people with a variety of backgrounds and a variety of interests and passions, the people who have this curiosity, this positive laziness, and want to, figure out new ways of doing things, they kind of like get together because they really enjoy talking to each other. So I see like every day the engineer who knows Grasshopper to automate Tekla for the structural design is talking to the architect who is like in Dynamo, and they're like live linking data between them, and are like finding their happy place in the project that way. So that's one way. I see more like rapid iterations, like people are able to change things faster, generates a positive atmosphere in the projects.
You talk also a lot about, so you're an external consultant, right? For most, or not external, but you're a consultant to a lot of design teams. If we think of design architects and engineers, specifically firms, or architectural engineering firms combined. I'm sure you work with contractors and others as well. When you talk about it, I'm sure there's an attraction towards hiring an external entity for doing some of these parts. What value do you see in having architects who code internally to a firm? If we can start there before we go towards the external resource.
I think that's the value is self-explanatory. You have an architect, you have a team inside an architectural firm who knows how to program, who wants to do it, and who helps other people in the company and in other projects doing it. It's kind of like the analogy to 10 years ago when you had maybe a small group who knew BIM. And that's quite similar, and the value is very, very big, I would say, compared to an architectural team who doesn't have it. And then, so yeah, that's a no-brainer. I think did you ever see my presentation on the Le Mans facade, the Le Mans building in France? Yeah, that when I was working on that project at Snøhetta, I realized. That wasn't the first project I ever did in Dynamo, but that was the project where I realized that we really need a team that knows this. And the reason was that I was basically the only guy in the office doing Dynamo. There was, people knowing Grasshopper, but at the time Grasshopper we didn't have Rhino inside, basically. So
everyone was finding a way to interoperate. That was like everyone.
Well, we used Flux on that project and a bunch of other projects, and I suppose the equivalent would be a Speckle today. But so yeah, I was the only Dynamo guy in the office, and then I built this whole like facade workflow that was like super amateur world, but like a sequence of 5-6 different Dynamo scripts that I had to run in a sequence. And I had to run them 8 times because there were 8 sides on the facade and there were too many elements in the building and blah, blah, blah. So that workflow was like, it was a super delivery. People I talked with said we could never deliver this project in the way we did. The contractor would never have gotten as good like model underlay as we did on that project. But it was a really vulnerable workflow, because if a bus hit me or I quit my job, which I did, it would be really difficult for someone to pick up that code. And even with Dynamo skills, it's difficult to take over other people's logic. Yeah. So then I realized that actually, if you have an architectural team and you have a team of programmers who have time dedicated and the support network to take it to the next level, that's like, yeah, that's super.
Yeah, you're talking a little bit about the resiliency, right, of the team, that they can survive. I mean, I remember, same conversation 6 years ago. My boss was like, if you get hit by a bus,
we're screwed.
We have a problem. And now I'm on a bigger team, and it's great. Can you talk a little bit about that redundancy and how you get that? I know from my experience, and I don't see this happening in our industry so much, but my wife's in software development, and she talks about pairing. Literally 2 software developers will write the code at the same time. One watches, one types. I mean, talk about catching errors if you're like always being watched. and then they would switch every like 10 minutes, and they call it pairing. I don't see that in AEC. How can you talk about like either resiliency or quality control? A lot of the people who are doing these coding things are early in their career, just figuring out, don't even know what they don't know, right? And I know that's a lot of people here. So what would you tell to this group about that?
We have so much to learn, and there's just one way of learning, and that's like just trying and failing, and just step by step. That's what we're doing. I mean, we're a software development team now. Basically, we've been doing this for 3 years, and we still use Slack and Trello. And we don't do pairing. Maybe we do tomorrow. Yeah, thank you. No, but this is a problem that the guy that starts Dynamo tomorrow, he's going to have that problem on Monday, and we've been doing this now for almost a decade, and we have that problem. If Dimitar, he has contractors at his house, but so if a ladder hits him or something, then then we're screwed.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
so it's a thing that me and my colleagues have been talking about in multiple presentations over the years, like bringing these two worlds together. It's, I don't know, maybe we should all do like a master's in computer science or something like that, and like really learn it, because there's a lot of things in software development that we don't know anything about, like how to do it professionally and how to like rig yourself. A lot of us who have that like impatient attitude, the same feeling, when you're doing rebar detailing third day in a row and you start poking into other things, and then all of a sudden you're a programmer and you're programming like this whole workflow for a facade, and all of a sudden you're the one helping everyone at the office do this. And then, no one can be expected to, know all these things about software development for day one, but I guess you're both lucky to live with actual software developers.
Well, my wife's a business analyst, so more on the management side of things. But when kind of remaining still with the present, I think we did a good job talking about the past. If we have anything more, obviously, we could just banter back and forth about the past. But thinking a little bit more about the present. So the people who are watching this, right? What are some things they could learn? What are some things that are important for them to know? How can they ask the right questions to non-innovative coders, whatever we want to call them, non-architects who code? What can they do now? What ought they be doing now? There's 5 questions. Pick your own.
I'm going to create my own again.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I'm just going to mute myself here. Bye, guys.
Actually, I have my own list of
great.
Simon questions here. Dear Håvard, no.
Oh, I gave you that list. I'm sorry. I haven't hit it. No, I'm just kidding.
Again, maybe I'm not completely understanding, but I mean, if you're not programming today and you're curious about it, there's just one way of doing it, is starting. I don't regret it, but when I started playing around with Zach Krohn's ideas on his blog, how to do like adaptive components and stuff like that in Revit, like pre Dynamo, I was just playing around for a few years. I didn't use any of those methods in a project. And I guess after 10 years, I now realize that there's like 2 really good ways of learning things, and that is to learn it in a project context, with deliveries, with other people's opinions, and with cross-disciplinary team deadlines, all of this. That's the only thing I do now, actually. And then the other way of really learning things really good in a very, very painful way is to teach other people about it. That was the first thing I ever did in Revit, and this is now 15 years ago, was to teach people Revit. I had never modeled a single wall in Revit, and I was doing I taught 100 direct classes before I ever designed a building. And that really, when you're in front of people and you're teaching them about something, then your brain works in a different way. I don't know how it works, but you really. So I would say like that. If you really want to do this, that's my 2 cents. Start using it on your project and start teaching it to people.
Yeah.
And if you already know it, if you're already a computational designer, which is probably likely that you are if you're watching this live stream.
In the evening.
Exactly. 10:30. then I think that we who get like passionate about these workflows and who start liking automation, who start continuously and relentlessly poking into these new avenues, we have a little bit of a job to do sometimes to explain the value of what we're doing to other people. I don't know if that's your experience, but I see it with myself, when I'm talking to a manager and they are like really, with the pen, okay, Håvard, explain to me, how do I make more money?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just we talk two different languages.
Yeah.
That's a really, really tricky one for me. So
have you seen the
sorry.
developer curve for return on investment that people expect every day? It was this idea, it really helped me when talking about return on investment. It's like people, when you do it with a pencil, expect after 1 day, I'm going to see 1 day of results. After 1 day, I'm going to see 1 day of results. So after 10 days, I'm going to see 10 days of results. And those results are tangible. If we talk about sheets, I hate drawings. But if we talk about sheets, it's, one drawing sheet every 3 days. They know they can produce one drawing sheet every 3 days. But if you're programming something to handle 800 sheets, how do you talk about return on investment to somebody when you're half of the way through and you've delivered 10%?
Yep. I asked, or I went to school together with one of the board members of the biggest engineering company in Norway, and I told him, your bridge engineers, they can now design a bridge 10% of the time that the other guys did last week, and that's like bunch of question marks.
Mm-hmm.
On that guy's face, because that's how do you deal with something like that, and how does your business model as an engineering company or architectural company become better? I guess like in some sense you can take on more work, but yeah, no, that's a tricky one, and I think that in many ways, now I'm talking about myself, largely I lack the vocabulary to explain this in a financial manner. For me, this is a no-brainer. If you can do this in 10% of the time, then why would you not? But for other people, need different types of explanations, and there's like that. I see that skill gap, or that experience gap, maybe I should call it. Every day, and that's something that I think that we as computational designers could really maybe dedicate a little bit more time on learning what to say, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially early on when you're like, hey, it's going to take me more time to show you anything, but when I show you something, I can show you so many more things very quickly right after that. And I think that's an important conversation to have and build good expectations with your whoever your client might be. Your client might be your internal project manager. So yeah, I want to pause and get to some of these questions that I'm seeing come in, because there's some really good ones coming in. So I'm going to look at these. Lisa Marie, if you have questions or whatnot, throw them. But I see some of these are about the future, so we'll pause on those and try to wrap those into something else. But Håvard and Lisa Marie, actually, afterwards, what are some of the most out-of-the-box examples of computational design you've seen? You talked a little bit about Zach Cron doing crazy stuff, and he's still posting crazy art with computational design. What are some crazy things that are most out-of-the-box thing, that you've seen delivered with scripting?
You want to go with Lisa Marie? I can say one thing, like out of the box, if you want to really do like I mean, maybe you're asking like a simple example, something that you can pick if you never did anything very advanced before and you want to get into programming. I think that one stuff that I was playing around with a lot in the beginning was like just randomizing facade. Have a bunch of Revit elements maybe, or in Grasshopper or whatever, and then you're just applying a random shuffle to that list and then seeing something happen. That could be really I sometimes do use that example when we do like basic dynamo training, for instance. Yeah. What's your pick, Lisenberg?
Gosh, I mean, along the same lines of like at the beginning, also playing around with like photos, like mapping photos onto different surfaces with like different cuts. Like if you just take a field of circles and then the size of the circle changes based on the hue of the photo and like all of that. I mean, you could do like go on for days to just get really fun, interesting things that like, probably won't be very useful, but like you could just be playing around with it.
But playing is important, right? Sorry, I interrupted you, Håvard.
Really, no.
I was going to say the same thing. Playing is important. People learn so much faster when they're having fun.
Yeah.
I did that once in the big dynamo training session with a bunch of serious engineers who were doing rebar detailing, so their like stress levels were super high. And then we just downloaded a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger and created in Revit, Arnold in Revit. And that was super fun. And we did it at the end of the dynamo session. So like all the serious stuff first, and then that one at the end. So yeah, stuff like that is really. And then you start understanding when you have you have 600 elements in a model, and you can see them just shifting and changing as you pull that slider, and then you open the windows for them to have ideas in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it helps you learn, right? A lot of people, as they're learning, it just really gets you into something. So you take something you're interested in, maybe it's the Eiffel Tower, or something else, and you're like, oh, I really want to figure out how to do this, and then you learn so much, and then it applies in so many other areas. There's a couple questions here about platform. So maybe this is for you, maybe this is for your team. You obviously probably spend most of your time these days coding things in Dynamo. I mean, managing a team. But can you talk about your team, and do they have platforms they prefer? Do they prefer Grasshopper? Do they prefer Dynamo? Do they prefer text-based things? JavaScript? How does your team decide when to do what?
Based on the problem at hand. So what we do is we talk to our clients and understand, and I think that we do a pretty good job at understanding what our clients' problems are, because we were them just some weeks or years ago, and we are still them. I work on a project today, and then the problem defines the solution, I would say. And quite often we build Grasshopper Dynamo scripts for like prototyping, and then. But most of our activities today is textual. So building Rhino toolbars and Revit add-ins from mass scaling of workflows and scripts. So and then it's C# Visual Studio. Sometimes Python. We run a lot of Python scripts with Revit batch processor. That's really helpful, and then the occasional Dynamo script. But the clue to our business is to be not too far ahead of where like the mainstream architectural firm is, but very, very, very close, but just a little bit in front. And it is difficult to come into an office. As you said, we're consultants. I hate that word, so I that's why I say we're like architects and engineers who call. But yeah, we're a consultant firm, and it's really difficult today actually to get to come into a sales situation and say like, oh, you want to hire some Dynamo experts, because a lot of the companies around here, at least, they have Dynamo experts. Like maybe 20% of their staff is exposed to visual programming in a sense. So we have to stay a little bit ahead of them.
Yeah, I assume you're seeing your highs from the audience here as you look at the chat there. But Troy says hi, and Bimsider, thanks for posting about the XKCD. I'm assuming when you click that link, it's the development curve. But as we go a little bit into the future, and we talk about the future where things are going, I did leave one of these questions about the present, about how do you connect Dynamo with machine learning and AI. I'm leaving that for now for the future, but maybe we can make that our transition. ML and AI are huge conversations right now, right? Everyone's saying, "Oh yeah, everything's machine learning and AI." I looked at four rows of data, and I wrote a machine learning algorithm that decided which of the four was the best or something. What are applications you've seen of that technology? Is it everywhere? Is it really changing everything that everybody does these days? And then can we transition into the future of, do you see them as a part of the future? Where do you see the future in general? So MLAI today, where is it? And then where are we with visual scripting, coding, MLAI for the future? There you go. And we lost our guest.
I have two voices in my head.
Perfect.
Right now.
Hear both.
One voice is the corporate business Håvard voice, who's saying, we're looking into ML, and we have big plans for AI in the future. And the other one is like, come on. I haven't done any ML. I have done zero AI. I don't know anything about it. This is one of those, I feel like I have to go through a couple of doors before I reach that door. The examples I've seen so far are, impressive, but a little bit underwhelming. And maybe I'm not just completely, I have very close friends who are much more into that space than I am. I'm very, very dedicated to what my colleagues, the architects in the projects that I'm working on, are doing tomorrow. That is my how do you say, sole focus. And then we're keeping our eyes out for everything happening in the space. And I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn and all the social medias every day to see if there's something new. But I'm really, the champagne is in the fridge, so to speak. I'm really excited about where we are going in the future. But I would not do like a big lecture on how we are looking into ML today, because we're not. We are looking into my former colleague Jostein Olsen, the Dynamo guy. He used to talk about this like steps. So when you start looking into programming, you're at the first step, and then you do step by step by step by step. That's what we're doing. And then maybe eventually we will reach a step where it says like, oh, we actually have a problem that has an appropriate solution, and this is maybe ML. Then we will start looking into that, but we're not there today. We are not there.
I appreciate your vulnerability and honesty of sharing both sides. Because I do think, and now I just want to speak straight to the viewers, but I do think a lot of us see this idea of like marketing talking about ML and AI creating all the buildings today, right now. It's there, and I do think there's going to be impact in the future. And maybe Håvard, maybe you could even go, or Lisa Marie, maybe one of you has thoughts on this a little bit more. But the examples I see right now that are truly happening, a lot of them are like Excel line best fit, which is really what ML, when you really dig into it, it's really not like it's doing cool things, but it's really just it's looking statistically at different things and it's picking the one that thinks it fits. Well, a lot of the examples that I've seen in our industry, even though they look like a full building structure is getting designed, it's really looking at previous designs and picking the one for a particular area that works. And I could have an argument. I've had arguments at conferences 2 years ago about that is ML or it's not. Yeah.
But at the same time, I would say, and I maybe I will look at this recording, a year in the future,
3 months,
and I'm going to think like, oh my
change.
God, oh, exactly. So the important thing here is that, and it was something that I spoke with Ian Keogh, my hero of Dynamo, yesterday actually, and we were talking about this, and it's, if you don't have a reference, how do you say this? Like if you're not aware of outer space, and then all of a sudden you see a UFO flying by, and you're like, what the heck is that? if you don't have a reference, something to connect something to, and this is where I'm very conscious about the fact that maybe if the ML UFO flies by, I'm not even going to see it. Maybe I think it's a moose here in the forest of Norway, but so then it's our jobs as like design technologists to know and to recognize maybe when there's a connection to be made, because and then you need like a certain base knowledge or a network, friends maybe who know something about it. So if you're completely oblivious to the technology, then you're never going to make that connection.
Yeah.
That's so true. I guess with that, if like ML and AI might not be widely implemented now, are there other like trends or just interesting topics of focus that you do see that is more happening now that will take us into the future?
Yeah, I think other people are much more schooled and informed than me on like bleeding edge technology. My greatest passion is in the people aspect of, I've always taught people how to, or tried to help people doing things smarter. So that's why I'm in the architectural teams and like talking to the architects and so I guess like, yeah, I'm more interested in maybe teaching an architect who has never used Grasshopper, what they can do with it. And then I have maybe a little bit of a less focus. That's me personally. Some of my colleagues know so much more about what's ahead of us than I do. But so I would make a complete fool of myself if I was saying like there's generative design is going to be the next big thing. I don't know. But I do use generative design. I use it in Grasshopper sometimes when the problem requires it.
Yeah, it's interesting to say when the problem requires it. And I think having that, like you said, when the moose walks in front of you, are you going to know it's ML? And I think we need to stop thinking about what technology are we doing and more about what problems are we solving and how are we really helping people. And one of the reasons I did take that moment to just pause and kind of speak to our audience is because when we started Your Desk University in March of last year, right after things were hit, like the group that started it, which if you were here, I'm grateful to, all those people who agreed to speak the first time with not knowing what this was going to be. And even for those who are agreeing to speak now. So thank you, Håvard. Cheers. But one of them said, I want to do this because I want to educate people. And I think being honest and sincere as much as we can and not just focusing on like marketing the coolest things, but like, oh no, here's actually what we're doing. Oh, here's what I'm learning. And that's what we've wanted to create this space to be. So thanks for that.
I love that sentence, to talk about these things in a sincere manner, in a novel manner of wanting to actually enlighten someone or inspire someone and teach someone. If you're talking about this to show off or maybe out of commercial interest, I mean maybe it's fine, but I'm more interested in the first one.
And
definitely.
There's nothing wrong in showing really good workflows, right? I think you're agreeing, like we all agree to that. And there's definitely a business acumen to every part of things that are happening. But it's just, which is your priority? And how does that lie? Other thoughts about the future? Open-ended question.
Well, may I? And also, one of my big dreams or big how do you call it? Something that I'm very, very excited about is the unknown thing that's going to happen in the future when you have like hundreds of thousands of architects who've been coding for some years. And think about the next generation of people coming out of school who maybe started learning. My kids are probably going to start learning coding next year. And they're like 11. I'm very, very excited about what that is going to. I have no idea what that is going to lead to, but but there's like, if you're into talking about ML and statistics, if you have like a big amount of architects coding, something is going to pop up, and that, I think that is going to create, hopefully, it's going to create like some sort of shift in that graph of efficiency, that eventually the graph is almost vertical and then it just shifts to something else. I don't know if I'm explaining it in a good way, but the potential of this like enormous group of people that is maybe quite young today, not necessarily though, but what we will see in the industry in a few years, when you have like a massive amount of architects and engineers who are programming, I'm very excited about.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Håvard. Thank you for your time. Lisa Marie, thank you for joining us. And thank you for watching this. We will be back. This is our first of at least 10. We're going to go at least through the beginning of May. We haven't announced all of our sessions yet, but I really appreciate you coming on and being willing to do this with us. So, Håvard, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa Marie, and thank you, Timon.
And with that,
Thank
see you
you.
guys.